The Galactic Naval Academy on Valeris Prime was the most famous military school in all the known universe. For 3,000 years, young soldiers from hundreds of different alien species had come here to learn how to fight, how to lead, and how to fly starships. The buildings were made of white stone that seemed to glow under the light of 3 suns. The training grounds stretched for miles. Everyone who graduated from this place went on to do great things. Humans had only been allowed to attend for 12 years. Earth had joined the Galactic Hegemony as a minor member, which meant that most aliens thought of humans as primitive and unimportant. They were tolerated but not respected. Lily Harper was one of 7 human cadets in her class of 400 students. She was 22 years old, with brown hair that she kept tied back and brown eyes that watched everything carefully. She was not tall or strong or particularly impressive by any standard. She kept quiet in class, studied hard at night, and tried not to draw attention to herself. But there was one thing about Lily that made the other cadets notice her. On her left wrist, she wore a simple bracelet. It was made of brown leather, old and worn, with a small bronze disc attached to it. The disc had a symbol carved into it, a circle with 8 lines coming out from its center, like a sun or a star. Her grandmother had given it to her the day she left Earth for the academy. "This bracelet has been in our family for a very long time," the old woman had said, pressing it into Lily's hands. "Longer than anyone can remember. You must wear it always, Lily. Promise me. Always." Lily had promised. She did not understand why it mattered so much, but she loved her grandmother and trusted her completely. The other cadets did not share this respect. The Velthari, tall aliens with silver skin and 4 eyes, found the bracelet amusing. They were an ancient race who considered themselves superior to everyone else. The Korvath, massive creatures, covered in thick brown fur, laughed at it in their deep, rumbling voices. Even the other human cadets avoided Lily because of it. They were embarrassed that one of their own would wear something so obviously backward and primitive. "Ah, look at the Earth girl and her little string," said a Velthari cadet named Cyrox one morning in the dining hall. He had a cruel smile on his face. "Does she think it has magic powers? Maybe it will protect her from failing her exams." His friends laughed. Lily said nothing. She finished her meal in silence and left. This was how it went for the first 2 weeks. Lily attended classes, endured the mockery, and focused on her studies. She was not the best student, but she was not the worst either. She simply existed in the middle. Unremarkable in every way except for the old bracelet on her wrist. Their main instructor was a legend. Commander Veth Karain was a Draenari, a species known for their military excellence. He had deep blue scales that covered his entire body, sharp yellow eyes, and a voice that could silence a room with a single word. He had served the hegemony for over 200 years and had fought in more battles than most cadets could imagine. When he spoke, everyone listened. When he walked through the room, everyone stood straighter. On the 3rd week of training, Commander Karain conducted a personal inspection of all the cadets. He walked slowly between the rows of students, examining their uniforms, checking their equipment, and noting any problems. His face showed no emotion. His eyes missed nothing. When he reached Lily, he stopped. "Cadet Harper," he said. His voice was cold and flat. "What is that thing on your wrist?" The entire room went quiet. Lily could feel every eye on her. Cyrox and his friends were grinning, waiting for her to be humiliated. "It is a family heirloom, sir," Lily answered. She kept her voice steady. "It has sentimental value to me." "Sentimental," Karain repeated. The word sounded strange coming from him. "Yes, sir. My grandmother gave it to me before I left Earth. She asked me to wear it always. Personal decorations are not permitted in this academy." "Remove it," Lily hesitated. She knew the rules, but she also knew that Regulation 7 allowed exceptions for religious and cultural items. "Sir, with respect, I believed that cultural items were permitted under," I said. "Remove it, cadet." There was no room for argument in his voice. Lily slowly unclasped the bracelet and held it in her open palm. The bronze disc caught the light from the windows, and the carved symbol was clearly visible. "Commander Karain," looked at it. And then something very strange happened. The old Draenari commander, who had faced armies and monsters and death itself without showing fear, went completely still. The blue color drained from his scales, leaving them a pale and sickly gray. His yellow eyes grew wide. His hands, which had been clasped behind his back with perfect military discipline, began to shake. The entire room noticed. Whispers broke out among the cadets. "Something was very wrong, sir," Lily asked quietly. "Are you all right?" Karain did not answer. He was staring at the symbol on the disc as if it were a ghost, as if it were the most terrifying thing he had ever seen in his 200 years of life. Another instructor rushed forward. "Commander Karain, are you unwell? Should I call a medic?" Karain stepped backward. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. It was the voice of someone who had just seen something impossible. "Where did you get that?" Lily was confused and frightened. "I told you, sir." "My grandmother, where did she get it? Where did it come from originally?" "I do not know, sir. It has been in my family for generations. We do not know where it came from." Karain's hands continued to shake. He looked at Lily with an expression she had never seen before on any face, human or alien. It was not anger or contempt or amusement. It was fear. Deep, genuine fear. "Everyone out," Karain commanded suddenly. His voice was stronger now, but strained. "All cadets are dismissed. Return to your quarters immediately." Students exchanged confused looks, but obeyed. They filed out of the room quickly, whispering among themselves. Cyrox was no longer smiling. Even he looked disturbed by what he had witnessed. But when Lily tried to leave, Karain held up a hand. "Not you, Cadet Harper. You stay." The door closed behind the last student. Lily stood alone with Commander Karain in the empty classroom, the bracelet still resting in her palm. "Sit down," Karain said. He walked to his desk and activated a communication device. "Security team to Classroom 7 immediately. Priority Alpha." That was the highest level of urgency. Lily sat down in a chair, her heart beating fast. She looked at the bracelet in her hand, at the simple symbol that had been a part of her life for as long as she could remember. What had her grandmother given her? What did it mean? And why was the most decorated military commander in the hegemony looking at it like it could end the world? The security team arrived within minutes. 2 large Korvath guards took positions at the door while a senior officer, stern-looking Draenari named Captain Morrell, spoke quietly with Commander Karain in the corner of the room. Lily sat at the table with her bracelet placed in front of her like evidence in a criminal trial. She could not hear what they were saying, but she could see their faces. Captain Morrell looked shocked. Karain looked like a man who had received the worst news of his life. Both of them kept glancing at her, then at the bracelet, then back at each other. Finally, Karain walked over and sat down across from Lily. Captain Morrell stood behind him with her arms crossed. "Cadet Harper," Karain began. His voice was calmer now, but his scales were still pale. "I need you to tell me everything about this bracelet. Where it came from. How long your family has had it. Everything you know." "I have told you everything, sir. It belonged to my grandmother. She told me it had been passed down through our family for many generations. At least 6, maybe more. We do not know its origin. It is just an old family tradition. And the symbol. Has anyone in your family ever explained what it means?" Lily shook her head. "No, sir. My grandmother never knew. Her mother never knew. It is just a design to us. We thought it might have been some kind of good luck charm from long ago." Karain and Morrell exchanged a look. Then Karain reached over and activated a holographic display on the table. Blue light flickered. Images began to appear in the air above them. Lily saw photographs of ancient stone carvings from alien worlds. She saw metal artifacts covered in rust and time. She saw cave paintings that looked like they had been made millions of years before humans existed. Every single image showed the same thing. The circle with 8 radiating lines. The exact same symbol that was on her bracelet. "This mark," Karain said quietly, "is older than the hegemony. It is older than every civilization we know of. It appears on ruins and artifacts scattered across 17 different star systems. And those ruins are over 100,000 years old." Lily stared at the images. Her mouth had gone dry. That is not possible. My bracelet is old, but it is not that old. The original may not be. But the symbol is... We call the species that created it the architects. They were a civilization so advanced that even today, with all our technology, we cannot understand how they built their structures or powered their machines. They left behind wonders that we can barely comprehend. Hey, what happened to them? Lily asked. Karen's expression darkened. They vanished. Approximately 100,000 years ago, something swept through this entire region of the galaxy and erased all intelligent life. Every civilized sit. Ion, every species, every planet with thinking beings on it was destroyed. We call this period the Great Silence. When our ancestors began exploring space millions of years later, they found only ruins and bones and empty worlds. The architects were the only species that seemed to have known it was coming. Their final records speak of a great enemy, a darkness that consumed everything. They fought against it, but they lost. Lily looked at the symbol floating in the holographic display. If they lost, then why does this symbol keep appearing? Why would anyone preserve it? Because they left behind a promise. Karain changed the display to show a particular carving. It depicted the 8-lined symbol above a planet, with strange writing beneath it. Our linguists spent centuries learning to read their language. This passage translates to, "When the darkness returns, look to the children of the forgotten world. They will wear our mark. They will remember what we could not." The words hung in the air. Lily felt cold. "The forgotten world," she repeated slowly. "You think they meant Earth?" Karain nodded. "When the hegemony first made contact with humanity, no one paid attention to your species. Earth was considered unremarkable. A small planet in an unimportant system. Your people were primitive, violent, and barely capable of basic space travel. Just another minor species among thousands. But then we found something," Moral continued. She changed the holographic display again. This time it showed a satellite image of Earth, focused on a mountain range. At first, Lily did not understand what she was looking at. Then she saw it. Cut into the bedrock of the mountains, so large that it could only be seen from space, was the symbol. The circle with 8 lines. It spanned 12 miles across and had been carved so deep into the rock that millions of years of erosion had not erased it. "This was discovered during our first surveys of your planet," Karain said. "We dismissed it as a natural formation, a coincidence. We never told your governments what we found. Why not?" Karain met her eyes. In his gaze, she saw something she had never expected to see from this proud and ancient warrior. Fear. Raw. Honest fear. Because if we admitted what it meant, we would have to accept that humanity is not what we believed. That your species is not some primitive newcomer stumbling into a galaxy of older and wiser races. That you might be connected to the most advanced civilization that ever existed. Lily's hands were shaking now. She looked down at the bracelet, at the small bronze disc that had hung on her wrist since childhood. "But why me?" she asked. "Why my family?" "We do not know. Perhaps the architects chose certain bloodlines to carry their legacy. Perhaps it was random. But you are the first human we have ever met who possesses an actual architect artifact. It's not just the symbol, but a physical object that bears their mark." Moral leaned forward. "Cadet Harper, we need to examine that bracelet. We need to run tests to compare it to the other architect artifacts in our archives. If it is genuine, if it is actually connected to them in some way, then this discovery could change everything we know about human history." Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory. "You must wear it always. Promise me." "My grandmother made me promise to never take it off," she said quietly. "Your grandmother did not know what she was giving you. Maybe she did." Lily closed her hand around the bracelet. "Maybe that is exactly why she made me promise." Karain studied her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Very well. Then you will come with us, bracelet and all. We are taking you to the Central Archives on Kalos Station. There are experts there who may be able to help us understand what this means and what we should do about it." Lily stood up. Her legs felt weak, but she forced herself to stay steady. "In my training? My place at the academy? Your life as you knew it is over, Cadet Harper." Corain's voice was not cruel, but it was honest. "Whatever happens next, nothing will be the same. For you, for humanity, perhaps for all of us." He turned and walked toward the door. Moral followed. Lily looked down at the bracelet one last time. Just hours ago, it had been a source of embarrassment, a reason for mockery, a simple family keepsake that marked her as backward and primitive. Now it might be the key to the oldest mystery in the galaxy. She clasped it back onto her wrist and followed them out. The journey to Kalos Station took 3 days. Lily spent most of that time in her small cabin on the transport ship, staring out the window at the stars and trying to understand how her life had changed so completely in such a short time. Word had spread quickly through the academy. By the time she boarded the transport, every cadet and instructor knew that something extraordinary had happened with the human girl and her strange bracelet. Cyrox and his friends were no longer laughing. The other human cadets looked at her with a mixture of confusion and hope. Commander Corain had said nothing more to her since they left Valeris Prime. Kalos Station was enormous. It hung in orbit around a gas giant. It's a massive structure of metal and glass that housed the hegemony's most important archives. Records from thousands of civilizations spanning millions of years were stored here. Scholars came from across the galaxy to study in its libraries. But Lily was not taken to the main libraries. She was escorted through security checkpoints and restricted corridors until she reached a section that most people did not even know existed: the Architect Vault. The room was dark, except for soft blue lights that glowed from the ceiling. Display cases lined the walls, each one containing a different artifact preserved in stasis fields. Strange devices hummed with dormant power. Tablets covered in flowing alien script stood upright on pedestals. Everything was old, impossibly old. Everything carried the same symbol that marked Lily's bracelet. A team of researchers was waiting for her. Their leader was a Velthari scientist named Dr. Mailer, an elderly female with gray skin and calm, curious eyes. She did not look at Lily with contempt or suspicion. She looked at her the way a person might look at a puzzle they had been trying to solve for their entire life. "Cadet Harper," Dr. Mailer said warmly, "welcome to the vault. I hope you understand how significant this moment is. We have waited a very long time for someone like you." "I do not understand any of this," Lily admitted. "A week ago, I was just a student trying to become a pilot. Now everyone is treating me like I am some kind of important historical figure. Perhaps you are." Dr. Mailer gestured for her to follow. "Come, there is something I want to show you." She led Lily to the center of the vault, where a single pedestal stood apart from all the others. On it rested a small object protected by multiple layers of energy shielding. It was a bronze disc, exactly like the one on Lily's bracelet, identical in every detail, down to the smallest scratch and imperfection. "We found this on a dead world at the far edge of explored space," Dr. Mailer explained. "The entire planet had been burned down to bare rock. Nothing survived except this one artifact. Our scientists have studied it for centuries, but we have never been able to unlock its secrets." Lily stared at the disc. It looked like it could have been made by the same hands that crafted her own. "How is that possible?" she asked. "My bracelet is old, but it cannot be as old as this. I do not know. Perhaps the architects made many copies. Perhaps they planted them throughout the galaxy, waiting for the right people to find them. Or perhaps there is a connection between these objects that we do not yet understand." Lily reached up and touched her own bracelet. As her fingers brushed the bronze disc, she felt something strange. A warmth spread through her hand and up her arm. A vibration hummed in her chest, like a heartbeat that was not her own. "May I touch it?" she asked, pointing to the artifact on the pedestal. The researchers exchanged nervous glances. Commander Corain, who had been standing silently by the door, stepped forward. "We do not know what will happen," he said. "That artifact has been dormant for 100,000 years. It has never responded to any species that has touched it." "But I am not any species." Lily looked at him. "I am human. And according to you, That might mean something different than we all thought. Karain hesitated, then nodded to Dr. Mailer. The scientist deactivated the energy. Shield's Lily reached out and touched the disc. Light exploded through the vault. It was not a physical light that burned or blinded. It was something else, something that seemed to fill her mind rather than her eyes. When her vision cleared, the room had transformed around her. Holographic images covered every surface, star maps, technical diagrams, flowing text in a language she had never seen but somehow understood, and standing in the center of it all was a figure made of pure light. It was humanoid in shape, but not quite human. Its features were smooth and gentle, neither male nor female. Its eyes held a depth and weight that made Lily feel like she was looking at something ancient beyond comprehension. Finally, the figure said. Its voice did not come through her ears, but directly into her mind. "We have waited so long. We were beginning to fear you would never come." The researchers could see the holographic displays, but not the figure. They were shouting questions, running to their instruments, trying to understand what was happening. Lily ignored them. Her attention was fixed entirely on the being of light before her. "What are you?" she asked. "What is this?" "I am a memory," the figure replied. "A message preserved across time for this exact moment. For you, the inheritor? Inheritor of what?" The figure gestured to the star map surrounding them. "Your species was our final hope. When we knew that the darkness would consume us, searched the galaxy for a world that might one day produce beings capable of completing what we could not. We found Earth." Lily's heart was pounding. "What did you do?" "We seeded your world with our knowledge. We wove our essence into your genetic code, buried deep where it would remain hidden until the time was right. Every human being carries a piece of us within them. You are our children, Lily Harper. Humanity is not a young and primitive species stumbling into the stars. You are the continuation of everything we were, everything we hope to be." The weight of these words pressed down on her like a physical force. She thought of all the times humans had been mocked, dismissed, treated as inferior newcomers in a galaxy of ancient powers. And all along, they had been carrying the legacy of the most advanced civilization that ever existed. "The darkness you spoke of," she said quietly. "What is it?" The figure's expression changed. For the first time, she saw something like sorrow in its ancient eyes. "It is not an enemy in the way you understand enemies. It is not a species or an army. It is an absence, a void that consumes consciousness itself. It erases awareness. It destroys the very possibility of thought and life and meaning. And it is coming back? Yes, we delayed it. We scattered it across time and space. We bought the galaxy 100,000 years, but it is reassembling. It is returning, and it will finish what it started." Lily felt fear grip her heart. "Then why did you leave this message for me? What am I supposed to do?" The figure reached out and touched her forehead. Images flooded her mind. Battles fought across the stars, civilizations rising and falling, billions of minds joining together in a desperate attempt to push back the void. "The darkness cannot be defeated by weapons or ships," the figure said. "It can only be countered by consciousness, by minds working in perfect unity, creating a beacon of awareness bright enough to push back the emptiness. We tried, but we failed. Our species was too divided. We could not achieve the unity required. You think humans can? We know you can. We have watched your species grow. For all your violence and conflict, you possess something we never had. An extraordinary capacity for connection, for empathy, for sacrificing yourselves for strangers. You form bonds that cross every barrier, every boundary. This is your greatest strength, Lily Harper. This is why we chose you." The light was beginning to fade. The figure was becoming transparent. "Wait," Lily called out. "I have so many questions. I do not know what to do." "You will learn. The knowledge is inside you, inside all humans. You simply need to awaken it." The figure smiled, and even though it was made of light, the expression was warm and kind. "We believe in you. We always have. That is why we gave you this gift and this burden. The fate of all conscious life now rests with humanity." The light faded completely. The holographic displays disappeared. The vault was dark and quiet again. Lily stood alone in the center of the room, her hands still resting on the ancient disc, tears streaming down her face. The researchers were staring at her in stunned silence. Commander Crane had gone completely pale. "What happened?" Dr. Mailer asked. "What did you see?" Lily looked at them, at these representatives of species that had dismissed humanity for so long. Then she looked down at the bracelet on her wrist, at the symbol that had marked her family for generations. "Everything's about to change," she said quietly. "For all of us." The news spread across the galaxy like fire. Within days, Lily Harper had become the most talked-about person in the hegemony. Scientists argued about the implications. Politicians held emergency meetings. Religious leaders declared it either a miracle or a hoax. Everyone had an opinion. For the alien species that had spent centuries looking down on humanity, the revelation was difficult to accept. The proud Velthari refused to believe that primitive humans could be connected to the legendary architects. The Korvath demanded more proof. Even species that had been friendly to humans struggled with the idea that Earth, of all places, might hold the key to its galactic survival. But the evidence was impossible to ignore. Dr. Mailer's team confirmed that Lily's bracelet was genuine. Made from the same materials and using the same techniques as every other architect artifact, more importantly, when Lily touched the archive disk, she had activated systems that had been dormant for 100,000 years. No other being in recorded history had ever done that. The Hegemony Council summoned Lily to their great chamber on the capital world. She stood before the leaders of 1,000 civilizations. A young human woman who had never wanted attention or power told them what the architects had revealed to her. Not everyone believed her. Some called her a fraud. Others called her dangerous. A few suggested she should be locked away for study, treated as a specimen rather than a person. But Lily refused to play their games. "I'm not a weapon," she told the council. Her voice was clear and steady, even though her heart was racing. "I am not a symbol for you to worship or a tool for you to use. I am a human being. And whatever the architects left inside my people, it belongs to all of humanity, not just to me." High Chancellor Morvith, the ancient leader of the council, leaned forward in his chair. His face was creased with worry. "The darkness is approaching. Our long-range sensors have detected strange readings at the edge of the galaxy. Entire star systems are going silent. We need leadership. Someone the people can follow. Then follow humanity. All of us, not just one person." Lily looked around the chamber at the thousands of faces watching her. "My species did not survive on our world by following a single leader. We survived by fighting together, by failing together, by picking each other up when we fell. That is what the architects saw in us. Not one special bloodline, but an entire species that refuses to give up." The council was not satisfied, but they had no choice except to let her go. She was not their subject. She was not under their control. She was simply a human woman who happened to carry the hopes of a civilization that had died before any of them were born. Lily returned to Earth. She spent the next year traveling to every corner of her home world, searching for others who carried the architect's symbol. Her grandmother had told her that the bracelet was unique to their family, but the message from the archive had suggested otherwise. If the architects had seeded their legacy throughout humanity, there had to be others. She was right, in a small fishing village in Portugal. She found an old man named Carlos who wore a pendant with the 8-line symbol. His family had passed it down for centuries. No one knew where it had come from. In Japan, she met a woman named Yuki, whose family had guarded a bronze disc since before written records existed. They had always believed it was connected to the gods. In Kenya, she discovered a tribe whose elders bore the symbol as a sacred tattoo, passed from generation to generation in a ritual that was older than any other tradition they practiced, all across Earth. Hidden in plain sight, the children of the architects had been waiting. They did not know what they were. They did not understand their heritage. But they had kept the faith, preserving the symbol even when they had forgotten its meaning. Lily gathered them together, not as followers, but as partners. Scientists worked alongside village elders. soldiers trained with monks. Children who had been mocked for their strange family heirlooms suddenly found themselves holding pieces of a puzzle that could save the galaxy, and slowly, piece by piece, they began to understand what the architects had left them. It was not a weapon in the traditional sense. It was something far more powerful. The architects had discovered that consciousness itself was the foundation of the universe. Everything that existed, matter, energy, space, time, all of it arose from awareness. The darkness that had consumed them was not a physical enemy. It was an absence of consciousness, a void that erased awareness wherever it spread. It could not be fought with ships or bombs. It could only be pushed back by minds working together, creating a beacon of consciousness bright enough to hold the emptiness at bay. The architects had tried to do this. They had gathered their greatest minds and attempted to merge their awareness into a single unified force, but they had failed. Their species was too individualistic. They could not let go of their separate identities long enough to become one. Humanity is different. For all their wars and conflicts, humans had always been drawn to connection. They formed families and tribes and nations. They fell in love. They sacrificed themselves for strangers. They felt the pain of others as if it were their own. This capacity for empathy, which the galaxy had dismissed as a weakness, was actually humanity's greatest strength. The architects had seen this potential and nurtured it, hiding triggers in human genetics that would activate when the time was right. Now, with the darkness returning, those triggers were beginning to fire. Humans across Earth were reporting strange experiences. They could feel the emotions of people around them. They could sense when someone they loved was in danger. They were dreaming the same dreams, sharing thoughts without speaking, connecting in ways that should have been impossible. Lily felt it too. When she concentrated, she could reach out with her mind and tea. Ouch! The awareness of other humans nearby. It was like discovering a sense she had always possessed, never known how to use. The hegemony watched these developments with growing alarm. Some species saw humanity as their potential saviors. Others saw them as a threat, a primitive race suddenly evolving beyond anything they could control, and at the edge of the galaxy. The darkness continued to grow. Star systems went silent one by one. Ships sent to investigate never returned. The void was spreading, and it was accelerating. One night, Lily stood on a hillside in Kenya, surrounded by the others who carried the architect's symbol. There were nearly 1,000 of them now, gathered from every nation on Earth. Above them, the stars shone brightly in a clear sky. "It is coming," said an elderly man from China named Wei. He could feel it too, a coldness at the edge of his awareness. "We do not have much time, I know." Lily looked at the faces around her, young and old, rich and poor. Every race and culture and belief system that humanity had ever produced, standing together under the stars. "But I think we are ready." "Ready for what?" asked Yuki. "We still do not fully understand what we are supposed to do." Lily smiled. It was a sad smile, but also a hopeful one. We are supposed to do what humans have always done. When things are impossible, when everything seems lost, we hold on to each other. We refuse to let go. We face the darkness together. She closed her eyes and reached out with her mind, touching the awareness of everyone on that hillside. They reached back, connecting to her and to each other, forming a web of consciousness that glowed like a small sun in the darkness of space. Somewhere far away, the void sensed that light and began to turn toward Earth. The final battle was coming, and humanity would either shine bright enough to push back the darkness or be consumed by it forever. The darkness arrived like a wound in the fabric of reality. It did not come as an army or a fleet. It came as an absence, a place where stars should have been, but were not. Where it passed, everything ceased to exist. Not destroyed, just gone. Erased from the universe as if it had never been. The hegemony's greatest warships gathered at the edge of the expanding void. Thousands of vessels from dozens of species, the most powerful military force ever assembled in galactic history. They fired their weapons into the darkness. Nothing happened. Energy beams vanished without impact. Missiles disappeared without explosion. The void simply absorbed everything and continued spreading. Panic swept through the fleet. Commanders who had never known fear began to lose hope. This was not an enemy they could fight. This was the end of everything. Lily stood on the bridge of a ship called the Constellation's Hope. It was humanity's first true warship, designed and built by humans with technology awakened from the architect legacy within their genes. Around her stood representatives of every nation on Earth, connected to billions of their fellow humans through the mental network they had learned to create. Her second in command was a young man named Danny Cole from a small town in America. He had been an ordinary engineer before discovering that his family's old medallion bore the architect's symbol. Now he stood beside Lily, his mind linked to hers and to thousands of others. "The void is 20 light years away and closing fast," Danny reported. His voice was calm, but she could feel his fear through their connection. "At this speed, it will reach the inhabited systems in less than a week." Lily nodded. She looked at the view screen, at the terrible emptiness that was swallowing the stars. "Contact the fleet," she said. "Tell them to hold position. We are going to try something." The alien commanders were skeptical. Why should they listen to a human girl? Their weapons had failed. What could these primitives possibly do that the combined might of the hegemony could not? But they had no other options. So they held position and watched. Lily closed her eyes and reached out with her mind. The signal traveled not through technology, but through something older and deeper. The network that the architects had woven into human consciousness itself. Across the galaxy, on Earth, and on every human colony, people felt her call. In cities and villages, in hospitals and schools and homes and on streets, humans everywhere stopped what they were doing and closed their eyes. They reached out with their minds, connecting to Lily and to each other. The connections multiplied. 1 became 10. 10 became 100. 100 became 1,000,000. 1,000,000 became 1,000,000,000. 8 billion human minds, linked together in a way that no species had ever achieved before. Lily felt them all. Every joy and sorrow, every hope and fear, every moment of love and loss and triumph and failure that made up the human experience, it flowed through her and beyond her, joining into something vast and luminous. A light began to emanate from every human. It was not a physical light that could be measured by instruments. It was a radiance of consciousness, of pure awareness, shining out into the darkness. The void sensed it. For the first time in 100,000 years, the emptiness hesitated. "Push," Lily whispered. And 8 billion voices pushed with her. The light exploded outward from Earth. From every human ship, from every human colony, it converged into a wave of pure consciousness that swept across the galaxy. It struck the void like sunrise striking shadow, and the darkness recoiled. But it was not enough. The void was old. It was vast. It had consumed civilizations beyond counting, and it hungered with a patience beyond time. The human light was bright, but it flickered. Individuals fell out of sync, their fears and doubts fragmenting the unity. Lily strained to hold them together. She poured everything she had into the connection, but she could feel her people slipping away. The darkness was too strong. They were going to fail, just as the architects had failed before them. And then something unexpected happened. "Commander," Karine's voice came through the communication system. "Human vessel. This is the Hegemony flagship. We are receiving reports from across the fleet. Our people, they are feeling something. Emotions that are not their own. Thoughts that seem to come from outside." Lily understood immediately. The network was not limited to humans. The light they were creating was so powerful that it was reaching other species, inviting them to join. "Commander," she said, "tell your people to stop fighting it. Tell them to reach out. To connect with us." There was a long pause. Then Karane spoke again, his voice filled with wonder. "I feel you. I feel all of you. It is like nothing I have ever experienced." The Drenari joined first. Then the Velthari, putting aside their pride in the face of extinction. Then the Korvath, the smaller species, even the ancient races who had believed themselves above such things. One by one, they reached out with their minds and added their consciousness to the human beacon. The light became blinding. It burned away the void, not destroying it, but filling the emptiness with awareness, with meaning. With the stubborn insistence that existence mattered and would not be erased, the darkness shattered. It did not disappear entirely. Perhaps it never would. But it broke apart into fragments too weak to consume, scattered across the universe where it could do no more harm. The stars that had been lost were gone forever, but the stars that remained continued to burn. The battle was over. Life had won. Lily collapsed on the bridge, exhausted beyond words. Danny caught her before she could fall and helped her to a seat. His eyes were wet with tears. "We did it," he said. "We actually did it." Lily looked out the viewport at the galaxy, scarred but still alive. She thought of all the minds she had touched, human and alien alike.
Oh.
All of them standing together against the end of everything.
Are we?
She said softly, "All of us." Every species that chose to join, every person who refused to let go. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy changed. The old hierarchies of the hegemony crumbled. The species that had looked down on others realized that their survival had depended on working together. On acknowledging that every form of consciousness had value, a new alliance formed, built not on power, but on mutual respect and shared purpose. Humanity was no longer a minor species to be tolerated. They were recognized as the keepers of the architect legacy, the ones who had led the charge against the darkness. But Lily made sure that this recognition did not become worship. Humans were not gods or saviors. They were simply people who had done what needed to be done. Months later, Lily returned to Earth. She visited her grandmother's house, which still stood in the same small town where she had grown up. The old woman had passed away while Lily was traveling the stars, but her presence lingered in every room. On the mantel sat a photograph of her grandmother, smiling with the warmth that Lily remembered so well. Beside it was the empty box that had once held the leather bracelet. Lily took off the bracelet and placed it back in its box. Its purpose was complete. The symbol had been seen. The promise had been kept. The light had been kindled, but she kept the box close, not as a relic of the past, but as a reminder of what her grandmother had taught her so many years ago. We are never alone. We just have to remember how to reach out. Through the window, the night sky was filled with stars. They no longer seemed cold and distant. They seemed like friends, like family, like a universe that had finally learned what the architects had always known, that consciousness was precious, that connection was everything, and that as long as thinking beings chose to stand together, the light would never go out. Lily sat,